subscription services you forgot about. In 2025, one of the easiest ways people lose money isn't from big-ticket purchases, but from subscriptions they've stopped using and barely remember ever signing up for. What feels like a harmless trickle, a few dollars for an app here, $10 for a streaming service there, quietly turns into hundreds of dollars a year lost to services you no longer need. These aren't luxuries people actively choose month after month. They're recurring charges that slip by unnoticed until they've drained more than you realize. The shift happened because nearly every industry now leans on the subscription model. It's no longer limited to entertainment. Phone apps quietly auto-renew, fitness programs continue billing long after a user stops logging in, and cloud storage plans chug along in the background regardless of whether anything is saved there. Once your card details are on file, you aren't a customer making decisions anymore. You're a constant revenue source until you deliberately cut the stream off. Companies aren't relying on convincing you to buy again. They're relying on your inattention. A large part of the problem comes from the design of subscription systems themselves. Free trials often flip into paid services unless you cancel beforehand, and the process for ending them is rarely straightforward. The Federal Trade Commission has highlighted how cancellation friction is deliberately built into many systems, dubbing them Roach Motel designs, easy to get into, hard to get out of. Instead of a simple unsubscribe button, you might have to navigate multiple menus, scroll through obscure settings, or even phone a customer service line. Each extra hurdle increases the chance you'll give up before finishing, which is precisely the goal. This confusion is amplified when people juggle multiple accounts across platforms. A $4 app here, $12 streaming bundle there. Individually they look small, but together they create real overlap and waste. Many households unknowingly carry redundant subscriptions, paying for 2 streaming services with the same shows or keeping cloud backups active when another device already provides free storage. Researchers studying household budgets point to subscription creep as a major cause of wasted spending. It's not dramatic in one moment, but it steadily erodes financial health month after month. To take control, it pays to adopt a routine. Once each month, review your bank and card statements line by line, flag every recurring charge, and decide whether the service still has value. For services on trial, set a calendar reminder on the day you sign up so you can cancel before billing begins. Payment tools like PrivacyCom also let you generate virtual cards with spending limits or expiration dates, so a trial can end automatically without requiring you to chase down hidden settings later on. Apps now exist that scan accounts for active subscriptions, giving you a clear list of what's running and letting you cancel directly, saving time and undoing the roadblocks companies put in the way. What these forgotten subscriptions prove is how easy it is to normalize invisible spending. A handful of unused services looks insignificant until it's stacked across a full year, when the cost rivals major bills. Eliminating even a few can free up money every single month, and that sense of control over recurring costs translates directly into keeping cash for yourself rather than for companies banking on your silence. And while recurring charges drain your account slowly, other expenses are designed to burn up your money far more visibly, sometimes literally, with little to no added benefit. Premium gas for regular cars. Pull up to the pump, and it's hard not to notice how the premium gas button shines a little brighter, sometimes even highlighted in metallic colors or positioned to look like the smarter choice. It's marketed as fuel that shows you care about your car, a performance upgrade with protection built in. But unless your owner's manual specifically requires high octane, what you're really doing is spending more without gaining anything measurable. For the vast majority of vehicles on the road, premium fuel provides no added horsepower, no extra protection, and no longer lifespan for the engine. What it will do is raise your fuel bill every time you fill up. Octane ratings carry a scientific but misleading aura. Many drivers assume that higher octane means higher quality, when in reality, it only refers to the fuel's resistance to a type of early combustion known as knocking. High compression or turbocharged engines are engineered for that resistance, and in those cases, premium fuel is necessary. But for most standard vehicles, regular unleaded does the job perfectly well. You can think of premium here as a luxury label slapped on an everyday utility. It sounds impressive, but it doesn't change the final performance. Despite this, gas stations heavily lean on the marketing. Pump labels are filled with phrases like keeps your engine cleaner or enhanced performance fuel. These work because no one wants to feel like they're shortchanging their car. The reality is different. Since the 1990s, all gasoline sold in the United States already includes detergent additives by law, specifically designed to keep engines clean. Studies repeatedly confirm that unless your engine specifically calls for high octane, you'll see no gains in acceleration, mileage, or engine life from premium fuel. The car simply runs as if you had used regular. So why are people still reaching for that shiny button? Much of it comes down to habit and assumption. Drivers think, if I'm taking care of my car, I should buy the best. But in this case, the so-called best is simply the most profitable for the station. The price difference of 50 cents to $1 per gallon quickly adds up. Depending on how much you drive and the spread between grades, skipping unnecessary premium could save you hundreds over the course of a year. Not scientifically guaranteed savings for everyone. But for those who pump weekly, the math stacks up fast. The best guideline isn't what the label says at the station, but what the manufacturer says about your engine. If the manual specifies premium, then it's not optional. You should use it. Otherwise, default to regular and know you're giving your car exactly what it was designed for. Premium fuel only makes sense when an engine requires it. For everyone else, it's a polished marketing pitch that inflates receipts without delivering return. And this isn't the only place where packaging and presentation make something ordinary look essential. The same strategy plays out in another highly profitable industry, one where the difference in cost isn't in performance at all, but simply in the label on the box. Brand name medications. Walk through any pharmacy aisle and you'll notice two very different presentations of the same medicine. On one side, glossy boxes with bold logos and catchy taglines. On the other, modest white bottles with plain labels that seem like a cut-rate version. The surprising truth is that inside they work the same. By federal law, generic medications must contain the same active ingredient in the same strength and must work in the same way as the equivalent brand name drug. Regulators require strict testing to confirm this before a generic can even reach store shelves. Despite that, consumers often pay much more for branded drugs even when a generic sits right beside it. The difference isn't in the chemical formula, it's in how the product is marketed and packaged. A generic pain reliever can cost a fraction of the brand name version while providing identical relief. Yet people still routinely spend more, convinced a familiar logo or recognized color scheme somehow delivers stronger or faster results. The actual difference is usually inactive ingredients, things like dye, pill shape, or filler, which don't alter how the medicine works in the body. Pharmaceutical companies invest heavily to reinforce this bias. After a brand drug's patent expires and generics become available, advertisements do the heavy lifting. Commercials are filled with reassuring phrases like trusted relief or doctor recommended. None of that changes the formula inside the pill, but it triggers trust and loyalty that make patients reach for the expensive box. Generic versions, sold at thin margins, can't afford nationwide campaigns. Instead, they rely on regulatory oversight, which ensures they meet the same quality, safety, and effectiveness standards. The psychology here is simple but effective. People equate branding with effectiveness. When standing at the counter, many instinctively choose the box they've seen advertised on TV rather than the plain bottle their pharmacist mentions. This behavior doesn't come from evidence, it comes from repetition and reassurance. It explains why so many patients still request the brand name drug, even though pharmacists can confirm there's no difference in how the active ingredient works. The costs add up quickly. Paying extra for brand names in routine medications, pain relievers, allergy tablets, acid reducers, means spending 2, 3, sometimes 4 times as much for the same therapeutic result. Over time, that repeated choice translates into hundreds of wasted dollars, money that could easily be kept simply by asking about a generic equivalent. The fix here is both simple and actionable. Before you buy, ask your pharmacist if a lower-cost generic is available. In almost every case, there will be one, and choosing it has no impact on your treatment other than lowering your bill. What your body responds to is the active ingredient, not the logo on the box. And that disconnect between price, performance, and packaging isn't unique to medication. It's the same playbook you'll run into in other retail categories, where sellers lean on shiny displays and technical buzzwords to convince shoppers ordinary items are worth paying a massive premium for. Luxury HDMI and audio cables. In home theater aisles, one of the most persistent upsells in 2025 is the so-called luxury HDMI and audio cable. They're displayed in glossy boxes with metallic trim, marketed as if the clarity of your movies or the detail in your music depends on spending more. The setup is simple. After investing in an expensive TV or sound system, you're nudged toward protecting that quality with a cable priced several times higher than the standard version. It sounds sensible in the moment, but the sales pitch rests more on psychology than on engineering. The gap in price can be huge. Retailers often list standard HDMI cables for a few dollars, while positioning premium branded versions at $50, $70, or even over $100. Shiny connectors and buzzwords like enhanced fidelity or ultra-clear signal give the impression that only the premium models are fit for serious equipment. To the buyer standing at the checkout, it's framed as the only rational choice after spending thousands on a television or audio system. Yet when researchers and consumer groups test these cables in real-world conditions, they consistently find the same result. Budget-certified models work just as well as expensive ones for normal home setups. The reason comes down to how digital signals function. An HDMI cable transmits binary data, long streams of zeros and ones. Either the signal completes correctly or it fails. Unlike an analog signal, there's no gradual upgrade in picture or sound quality based on material or plating. Copper, the standard conductor, already does the job effectively. Adding a gold layer may look premium, but it has no effect on the quality of the output in everyday consumer use. Independent tests confirm that once a cable meets HDMI certification, the picture and sound will be identical regardless of price. So why do stores keep pushing the luxury versions? The business model rewards it. Retailers earn slim margins on televisions and speakers, but much higher margins on accessories. A store might only break even on a new screen while profiting heavily from one overpriced cable sold alongside it. This incentive shapes training and language. Salespeople are encouraged to frame the cheaper cable as inadequate, creating just enough doubt that customers choose the premium version out of fear of compromising their purchase. The practical move is to ignore the packaging and buy certified standard cables from reliable low markup sellers, especially online. A properly rated $10 cable delivers the same resolution and sound quality as one 10 times the cost. Look for the HDMI specification listed on the label, not the inflated language about maximum precision or studio-grade audio. What matters is that the cable matches the needs of your devices, not what's printed in bold type on the box. Accessories like these expose how inflated markups can hide inside everyday purchases. But they're not the only household item where the cost has little to do with the product itself. In another corner of consumer life, one essential liquid is sold for prices so extreme that ounce for ounce, it costs more than fine champagne. Printer ink cartridges. Printer ink cartridges remain one of the clearest examples of how everyday products can be priced far beyond their actual value. The printers themselves are often sold cheaply, sometimes for less than the cost of a night out, but what looks like a bargain quickly reveals its catch. Manufacturers make their profits not on the printer, but on the steady flow of ink you'll need to buy afterward. Ink is widely recognized as one of the most expensive liquids by volume, and the markup doesn't come from the liquid inside so much as from the system designed to keep you buying it. By 2025, that system has only tightened. Many cartridges now come with microchips or digital rights management that prevent cheaper third-party cartridges from working. If you attempt to install an off-brand replacement, your printer may flash an error or simply refuse to print until you purchase the official version. This practice, often described as lock-in, ensures that the manufacturer maintains control of the pricing, even when producing the ink itself is inexpensive. Restrictions like these force consumers into paying inflated costs again and again. On top of cartridge lockouts, subscription plans have become another way to turn printing into a permanent expense. These programs automatically send new cartridges when the system detects low ink. At first glance, it looks like a convenience, no more last-minute trips to the store. But most people don't print enough to justify monthly deliveries. Cartridges arrive whether or not there's a need, and households often end up throwing out dried or expired ink. The subscription ensures revenue flows steadily to the company, while the customer absorbs a cost that could outweigh their actual usage. What ties these tactics together is a simple shift in how the industry frames printing. Instead of paying once for a tool and replacing the ink when required, consumers are pushed into a model that feels like renting the ability to use their own machine. The low upfront cost of the hardware pulls people in, while the long-term expenses accumulate with every cartridge, every automatic shipment, and every warning that blocks non-approved brands. It mirrors the razor and blades strategy: cheap handle, expensive refills, but with more barriers keeping you from stepping outside the system. Still, there are practical ways to reduce the expense. Refill kits can extend the life of the original cartridge at a fraction of the price, although they may require more effort. Printers designed with refillable tanks cost more upfront, but dramatically lower the price per page over their lifespan. For those who print infrequently, it may even be smarter to use shared resources, like printing at work, school, or local libraries, rather than keeping a home machine stocked with expensive ink. The model shows how ordinary tasks can be engineered into recurring costs, creating an ongoing drain from something as basic as printing a page. And once you see how engineered convenience shapes the price of ink, it becomes easier to spot the same pattern in other parts of everyday life, especially with items in the grocery store that look like time savers but quietly inflate the bill. Pre-cut produce and convenience foods. Walk into a grocery store today and you'll spot two versions of the same item sitting side by side. A whole pineapple sells for just a few dollars, while a plastic container filled with pre-cut pineapple chunks often costs several times more. The difference isn't in the fruit, it's the packaging and the labor of someone spending a few minutes slicing it before it reaches the shelf. That small step is enough to justify a price tag that quietly transfers extra cost onto the shopper. The pattern extends far beyond pineapple. Carrots, peppers, bagged lettuce, even something as simple as peeled garlic are all sold in pre-prepped forms at a cost far higher than their raw equivalents. Industry data shows that pre-cut produce commonly costs multiple times the per-ounce price of whole items. To most shoppers, though, this feels ordinary. The neat packaging signals modern convenience, as if slicing food at home is somehow outdated. But what you're really paying is a convenience surcharge. A few dollars shaved from your pocket in exchange for minutes shaved off your prep time. The appeal of these items is easy to understand. When pressed for time, cutting a melon or dicing onions feels like a task better outsourced. Stores capitalize on that mindset by presenting ready-to-use trays as efficient, lifestyle-friendly solutions. Add grocery delivery apps into the mix and the markup climbs even higher. By the time pre-cut fruit moves from a warehouse to your doorstep, service fees and inflated base prices can make a single cup of melon cost more than a dessert at a restaurant. Convenience here isn't cheap. It's one of the most expensive ways to bring ordinary produce into your kitchen. Beyond the sticker price, there's another hidden cost: waste. Whole fruits and vegetables typically last much longer when stored properly, while pre-cut versions spoil quickly once they're exposed to air. That means shoppers are not only paying more upfront, but also more likely to throw some away if they don't eat it within a couple of days. What looks like saved time often becomes wasted money in the form of spoiled food. Choosing whole produce keeps cash in your pocket and reduces how much ends up in the trash. That doesn't mean pre-cut should always be avoided. In certain situations, like rushing to an event or managing a genuine emergency, grabbing a container of cut produce can make sense. The problem arises when it becomes a routine purchase rather than an occasional fallback. For regular shopping, buying whole items, preparing them at home, and storing them correctly will save money and stretch your grocery budget much further. The broader lesson is that efficiency often comes packaged with invisible markups. The moment a product is marketed as a time saver, chances are you're paying extra for a shortcut you could have managed yourself. And while produce markups hit in small amounts, there are other areas where the penalty for wanting flexibility can be far steeper, turning into contracts that lock you in and charge you heavily just for trying to leave. Wireless cancellation fees. Thinking about switching your phone carrier in 2025? For many people, that decision still isn't simple. A lot of wireless plans continue to include penalties for leaving early, often hidden inside contract terms. These charges are framed as safeguards for the company's investment, but in practice, they function as one of the most effective lock-in tools in the modern consumer market. You don't just pay for the service, you also pay for the right to stop using it. The way contracts are structured makes this outcome almost inevitable. Carriers lure customers in with discounts on the latest phones or an attractive monthly deal. What sits in the fine print is the obligation. Leave before the term is over, and you're responsible for either an early termination fee or the remainder of your device financing. The result is that canceling halfway through a contract can cost nearly as much as keeping it until it naturally ends. That design discourages switching, even when cheaper or better service options are available elsewhere. The pitfalls grow steeper when device financing is bundled. A phone that seemed free upfront is rarely free at all. It's tied to a months-long payment schedule. Cancel early, and the entire remaining balance comes due immediately, often along with a termination fee for the service itself. It's not uncommon for that total to equal or exceed the price of the handset on its own. What felt like a good deal during sign-up can turn into financial handcuffs once circumstances change. For customers, the frustration is obvious. If coverage is poor, billing errors keep piling up, or another carrier offers a better package, leaving should be straightforward. Instead, the contract erects a barrier that feels less like a small penalty and more like a ransom demanded for the freedom to walk away. Industry critics point out that this keeps customers in place without requiring carriers to meaningfully improve service. Loyalty, in this case, is manufactured by cost rather than earned through quality. There has been some movement against the worst of these practices. In certain regions, regulators have capped the size of cancellation fees or forced carriers to disclose them more clearly. But consumer advocates emphasize the preventative route. Don't sign contracts that put you in this position in the first place. Prepaid and no-contract wireless providers continue to offer greater flexibility, letting you pay month to month and cancel at will. Some even separate device financing from service entirely. So leaving a carrier doesn't automatically trigger a massive bill. The most practical step is choosing flexibility up front. If keeping options open matters to you, stick to providers with month-to-month plans or buy your phone outright so your device isn't tied to your service. That way, the decision to stay or leave remains in your hands rather than bound by a contract. And while wireless contracts use fees to discourage change, there's another area of spending where the trap is more subtle, where people hand over money not because they're locked in, but because they're quietly buying into a dream that almost never arrives. Lottery tickets! Lottery tickets in 2025 continue to thrive as one of the most common everyday purchases built more on emotion than on math. For a couple of dollars, buyers get not just a piece of paper, but a fleeting sense of possibility, an imagined escape from bills, obligations, or routine. The statistical reality, however, shows something much less generous. The odds of winning are so low that experts often describe lotteries as a form of entertainment disguised as opportunity. The jackpot payoff is positioned as life-changing, but for most participants, the value lies only in the brief daydream. Advertising reinforces that feeling. Bright billboards, glowing TV spots, and cheerful winners frame the lottery as exciting and aspirational. Taglines like "someone has to win" are repeated often, not to remind players of the odds, but to normalize participation. The product being sold isn't wealth, but the mood of anticipation, the thrill of scratching off numbers or hearing them called. Even when people know logically that the chances are minimal, that small surge of hope is powerful enough to override statistics. Small wins play a critical role in keeping players engaged. A quick $10 payout from a scratch-off or a minor number match easily becomes extra fuel for more tickets. Instead of taking home the gain, many reinvest immediately, convinced that the next draw might be different. This cycle is intentional. Lotteries are designed to return just enough small prizes to keep the game feeling rewarding, while ensuring the net result stays negative for the vast majority of players. Over time, this pattern turns regular participation into a steady drain on personal finances. The financial impact is often hidden by how buying happens. A few scratch-offs added to a convenience store purchase or one extra ticket at the gas pump feels trivial. Yet those spare change moments compound. Someone spending $10 a week without noticing could be dropping more than $500 in a year, money that never actually improves financial stability. What looks like a cheap thrill, stretched out over months and years, grows into a substantial expense that crowds out better uses of cash. Governments play a complicated role in this cycle. Lotteries are presented as voluntary fun, but they also generate billions of dollars in revenue that states rely on to fund public programs. That creates an unavoidable conflict. While individuals may lose, the system as a whole guarantees profit for the state. The structure ensures that even when jackpots are awarded, the government, always comes out ahead. The most practical takeaway is to reframe how you view lottery tickets. They aren't investments or survival strategies, they're entertainment. If you choose to play, set a small budget for it, just as you would for a movie ticket or a snack, and expect nothing in return. By capping spending and treating it as a form of recreation, you can enjoy the brief excitement without letting it eat into your long-term finances. And this tension between perception and reality, spending for promised results that aren't actually delivered, doesn't just apply to games of chance. It's equally present in everyday purchases, especially in the pharmacy aisle, where familiar names and packaging often convince shoppers to pay extra for products that perform no differently than their low-cost counterparts. Branded painkillers? Walk down the pain relief aisle in any pharmacy, and you'll find shelves stacked with colorful branded boxes promising fast, powerful relief. Right beside them sit generic bottles in simpler packaging that don't stand out nearly as much. Many shoppers instinctively reach for the brand name product, assuming it must be safer or stronger. In reality, those pills work in exactly the same way, but the brand nearly always costs significantly more, with no added medical advantage. One of the clearest examples comes with extra-strength painkillers. The large print on branded packaging suggests a superior formula, but a glance at the fine print usually shows the same active ingredient in the same dosage as the generic version inches away on the shelf. Decades of marketing campaigns have built a trust in logos and slogans that make consumers feel reassured, even though the chemical reality doesn't support the higher price. The active ingredient doesn't change just because the branding looks familiar. Here's the key point. Regulators require generics to match active ingredients, dosage, and performance before they can be sold. The pills undergo strict testing to confirm they deliver the same results as their branded equivalents. What this means is simple. You'll recover from your headache, muscle ache, or back pain just as quickly with the generic as you would with the branded option. Your body can't tell the difference between a pill that comes in a shiny blue box and one that comes in a plain white bottle. Only your wallet can. Marketing fills the gap between perception and reality. Ads often highlight claims like trusted relief for decades or recommended by professionals, cultivating loyalty without changing what's inside the pill. It can also create a subtle placebo effect. Because the packaging looks more impressive, some consumers feel like the medicine works faster. But this is a psychological boost, not a physical advantage. The science remains clear. Generic painkillers offer the same relief. Families that stick to name brands simply hand over more money year after year, often for no tangible benefit. The difference in spending adds up quietly. A few dollars here and there on common pain relievers seems small in the moment, but across an entire year, households that stick to branded products can end up spending hundreds more than those who choose generics. Pharmacy reports confirm the savings potential. Swapping brand-name painkillers for generics across everyday purchases provides meaningful financial relief over time without any loss in effectiveness. The way to avoid this hidden expense is straightforward. Compare the labels closely, and when in doubt, ask your pharmacist to confirm if a generic version matches the brand-name drug. In most cases, they'll tell you the active ingredients are identical. The only differences come down to inactive fillers, dyes, or pill shapes, none of which change how the medicine works. For the same recovery, the smarter option is the lower-priced bottle every time. At its core, this is about recognizing when you're paying for packaging instead of performance. Once you see that logos and shiny boxes don't improve your health, the choice becomes obvious.